o'clock, and joining us in studio this morning, of course, House Minority Leader here for the for our state legislature here. Jim Townsend's with us, and Rebecca Dow, a gubernatorial candidate, and just what's official? You're just working for the party right now, and helping keep the Republican values. Reminding folks of them here in New Mexico.
I'm finishing out my term in the House.
There you go.
And
yes,
there's still a republic to save. So if I can help, you can help.
And of course, this is something. Of course, we have Greg Nybert on and Candace Benzazell. We talk to them pretty regular here on the show and things, and we've had you on a few times as well. But you guys are kind of on an island when it comes to getting work done in the legislature. I mean, you get some help from, folks like Rebecca and some, from like Four Corners and other parts of the state. But you guys are in a losing battle pretty much every room you walk into, it seems like.
That is the perception sometimes because the numbers are different. But I will tell you that during the last legislative cycle, this caucus pulled it out.
Okay.
I mean, if it hadn't been for this caucus, we'd have had a 50-cent gas tax brought up. If it wasn't for this caucus, you would not have had a tax relief on Social Security. I can go on and on and on about the good things that this caucus. You would have had a terrible voting bill if it wasn't for this caucus. They voted. They stood their ground and they stopped all that. And if you go down all of the MLG bills that were had her name on it and tried to get through the legislature, this caucus is the one that stood the ground.
Yeah. Well, and I guess, do you guys ever get tired of, because at this point, you guys, your job as legislatures, almost the entire time yourself and some of these other conservative legislators have been in office, you spent your entire time building the wall to stop the, don't you get, at some point you're like, when can I get into this job to do good government, to create things and do things that would be benefit New Mexico as opposed to trying to stop everything from destroying New Mexico. You know what I mean? It feels like your job is not to provide. Your job now is to basically be the guards at the gate to keep the fingers in the hole from keeping the dam from breaking here. I mean,
Mike, here's the issue. We work tireless almost every day. I was in Santa Fe yesterday. She was too. She was in Albuquerque. I mean, we're on the road constantly. But what keeps us grounded is the fact that we go back into our districts and we see the pain. Mm-hmm. We see the hurt. We see those people that are asking us, can you help us? And that, to me, and I know to Rebecca, energizes us to say, hey, this fight is worth fighting.
Sure.
This state is worth saving. And I just never liked second place very well.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stay at it until we're in first place, and we will be.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I would say is help us help you.
Yeah.
When you look at the voter turnout in the highest
Sure.
Republican registered areas of the state, we got to do better. We can do better.
Well, it's time for people to look at history, and I think this is my biggest point I can make when in terms of what we're looking at in our political landscape and the history of New Mexico and how this state has been run since its inception before 1912, but officially once 1912 hit. But we've been run by one party. One party has made all of the decisions for this state for pretty much since it's been a state. Yes, there's been some opposition here and there, but for the most part, the Democrat agenda has been the one that's run this state since its inception.
And the Democratic agenda, quite frankly, is the reason that 20% of our seniors live in poverty. It's the reason we're 50th on our education scale.
That's the point I'm making.
It's the reason that our opportunity scale is in the low 40s.
Mm-hmm.
Worst
we
tax
can
code
do
in the
better.
nation.
Absolutely.
Open borders.
Open borders.
Sure.
I mean,
3 fentanyl overdoses a day.
Absolutely. So I'm kind of curious on the Democrat side, because let's face it, to get anything done in the legislature, you guys need help.
We need voters because we can change it.
Are you seeing their party starting to separate into two factions, where the moderates versus the more progressives, or is that line still pretty blurry?
There's not very many moderates anymore.
Okay.
It's a progressive agenda that's
Okay.
totally run on.
I didn't know if
side.
there's a few
They
maybe
hate their
older
own.
Democrats that
There
are
are a
kind of
few.
like, this is going too far. We need to bring it back in a little
I
bit.
hear that, but those people need to be much more vocal,
Gotcha.
and the Republicans need to step up. You know, when we have voter turnout in Eddy, Chavis, and Otero, Lee County, in the 25 and 30% on Republicans, it's really their fault.
Sure. And I've said this. I think I've said it with you, Rebecca, when you were running, for governor here, and I'm sure I've said this with you in the room. At this point, as a New Mexican, I just want to get us back to the middle.
Amen.
At this point, I'm like, yes, I could yes, conservative values, things. My life, I practice many of that.
Yeah.
But I understand not everybody thinks like me and acts. And in this country, you're allowed to do that.
And we should.
And you need to protect that. However, you've got to get a chance where everyone gets a say. And in this state, conservatives have not had that chance. They've never had that chance. And I'm telling people, you've been voting for the same people since you've been here your whole life, and you wonder why our numbers never get better, our things don't get better. And I'm like, you keep voting for the same type of people and expect things to change, and they're not happening. Is that politicians' fault, or is that our fault? And I'm starting to say it's our fault. We're the reason that's happening, and we need to do a better job of educating. And so I'm thinking, even if you're not necessarily dyed-in-the-wool conservative, if just to have balance of
Amen.
Conservatives and liberals in the same room trying to solve a problem, it's going to fix the problem way better than everyone with the same mindset trying to fix it. A lot of things will get missed. A lot of abuses of power happen, things like that. And to be honest, it would be the other way too. If it was all conservatives and no liberals, we'd probably have the same problems.
Yeah.
Because when you get a bunch of people that are
Weren't
thinking
our founding
like,
fathers smart? They warned us of the tyranny of the majority, and that's what we have
Absolutely.
in the state. But just Lee, Eddy, and Chavis County alone could change that.
yeah,
You have enough registered conservatives, if they would go out and vote, even if half voted,
sure,
to win every statewide race.
absolutely.
For
It's a big
conservatives.
deal.
Yeah.
It's a
It really
big
is.
deal.
Yeah.
And I get, people, you vote for people that you believe line up with you, and that's how it should work.
Well, speaking of oil and gas, and we can tell you who lines up with you, and that's why
Yeah.
Townsend's here,
Yeah.
is to talk about oil and gas jobs and what we need.
Well, and let's face it, the oil and gas is the savior of the state, but treated like the redheaded stepchild at the same time. Whereas they need it because this state will die without it. But it's not sexy to support oil and gas because of the world we live in right now. But without oil and gas, you would have absolutely zero products. You would have you would be sitting in a cave with a fire.
If we don't elect
Isn't it
Republicans, that's where we're
crazy?
headed.
Yeah.
Isn't it crazy that to some it's not sexy that the best jobs in the state,
Yeah.
the jobs where the unemployment is the lowest, where 3/4 of all of the state revenue is based on, and we sit here and say it's not sexy.
Yeah.
I mean, how much sexier can you get when
Exactly.
it turns the handle and makes the whole state run?
Absolutely.
And take the most woke snowflake in the world. They couldn't live without this sexy piece of, this
Yeah.
smartphone
Oil
that
and
they
gas is
live
all
on.
over that thing, by the way.
All over it. And every
Exactly
Tesla,
right.
you think a Tesla's sexy? No, let's talk
And-
about how much
and
oil
here's
and
the-
gas products is in that.
And here's the point that I've been making, and I'm not native to New Mexico. I moved here in the 90s. I was brought here by the Air Force and met my wife, and so I've been here for a long time, but I'm not native. But in that time, I've really learned and understand, that role that oil and gas serves in our community. And thing I've noticed so much over the years is that, yes, government regulation and things, there's got to be some of that. There's always, because if you don't, people will take advantage of things. But by and far, oil and gas industry is a industry that their people live in the same places where they're drilling, where they're doing the work and everything. So 9 times out of 10, most of these companies are going above and beyond what environmental regulations are made by the government to do things.
Well, you just go out. We have the fair starting in Chavis County here soon. You just go to the fair when the sale starts, and look at how much money is in that sale barn
Sure.
on sale day that comes from oil and gas.
Yeah.
They make the world turn.
Absolutely.
And it is so good because they support our communities so well.
Mm-hmm.
They work in our communities. They want our communities to do good, and they really make it good.
Sure.
They really make it
Absolutely. But the other side, or the anti-oil and gas, are trying to say it's destroying the planet and all this. And I'm like, they go above and beyond the regulations. They live in these places. They're not
There you go.
out destroying the planet. They're working with it. Matter of fact,
They've improved the quality of life for people all over the world.
Yeah.
a lot of times, like when these sand dune lizards and prairie chickens start rolling in, and a lot of the times they've already mitigated for that kind of thing, so that the
Absolutely.
shrimp or whatever is protected, or whatever they're trying to do, and then they're trying to list endangered species that aren't endangered, and that's another
But
thing
exempt
too.
the hardship on endangered species
Yeah.
when you're talking about solar or wind.
And so it's
or
all
the energy they want.
yeah. Which,
mean,
by the way, none of that would happen to that oil and gas either.
That's right.
Exactly.
And when the sun goes down tonight
Yeah.
and the wind doesn't blow tomorrow,
Yeah.
I hope it doesn't. Oil and gas is what makes our lights come on every day.
And I would say this too. Oil and gas industry, like every other major industry, they're smart people. They're going to adjust with the
Absolutely.
times and
course.
things. When they realize that oil production's dropping because they've got other, they're going to adjust. They're going to come up. Why do you think that oil companies and energy companies aren't investing in the other things too? Because they've got a foot in that fight as
It
well.
wasn't a regulatory agency that invented horizontal drilling.
Yeah.
It wasn't a government agency that says, I know how to frack this tight sands.
Yeah.
It was the innovative and the spirit of entrepreneurship in the oil and gas community that made all that happen.
Yes.
And even with all that going on, we're only recovering about 10 to 15% of the reserves. Did you realize that?
That's crazy.
Even today, there's 80 to 85% of the reserves left in place. And when we get the technology to sweep that tight sands, you're going to see things that happen that we just cannot believe in New Mexico.
Well, and
we
that's-
have
And the
been
whole
blessed.
world should say thank you.
Well, and this
Absolutely.
is something,
Thank you
know,
to the oil and gas workers.
And I know during the gubernatorial campaign, we were talking with the yourself and some of the other, Zanetti was one I was thinking
Right.
of, and when you listen to him talk about opportunities for this state, and you're right, it's one of these things that New Mexico should not be wanting for anything.
For nothing. We should be
We
the richest
are-
state in the union.
We have the resources and the amenities to be one of the most productive, richest, like you said, states in the country, maybe even in the world. We could be
Absolutely.
competing there with your Orange counties and Montgomery counties and these counties that are the big. To be honest, we have the resources.
I just hope we're
We just
not
need
to
to
the
tap into
point
it.
that we have more dollars than we have cents today, because we're going to have a lot of dollars.
Yeah.
We have some candidates that are
deploying
brilliant.
those to where they make our future generations stable
Yeah.
and thrive. That's what our job is, and that's
Yeah.
what we're here to
So
do.
Leader Townsend did a great job. All of folks across the state recruiting high quality candidates, and we're just weeks away from the election. And we've got competitive races, and that's why we're here. Talk about how exciting it is to know that we have very competitive races, enough that can turn
Sure.
the power in the House and make sure that we do have common sense, that we do have a balance that you're talking about,
Absolutely.
that New Mexicans want.
Well, we're both here today representing the New Mexico House Republicans, and we do that through the New Mexico House Republican Caucus Committee.
Okay.
NMHRCC.
Gotcha.
And our job is to fund all of these candidates all across the state and get them elected and in their office.
Gotcha.
And so that's what we're here to do today, is to ask the people of New Mexico to help us. Go to nmhrcc.org and make a donation.
Good deal.
Help us help you.
And that's
what
kind of
we wanna
helping
do.
the Republican Party throughout New Mexico
That does.
too.
That's specific to the House Republicans.
Good deal. Excellent too. And just throwing in and pile on to some more wire. Also, while we got a couple Wednesdays before a couple second Wednesdays before the next election, the Chaves County Federated Republican Women,
Nice.
they do kind of the same
They do.
stuff.
Yes.
Right now, they're really focusing on educating the public.
Nice.
So every second Wednesday of the month, they've got candidates from all over the state, various House level to city and county level to other
So
state
important.
level positions, your public lands, those types of positions. all of that, they're having these candidates come, and you get to hear and speak and actually talk to them. So you can kind of hear how they think and feel and kind of line up with. So
and that's at noon at the convention center. Right?
Yeah, they do that the
it's
second
like $10
Wednesday
for lunch. Or
Yeah, they do it
It's
very
really affordable, nice
yeah.
lunch. And I went to that a couple months ago. They had all 3 of the congressional candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you've been gerrymandered, you have all 3 congressional candidates,
We
and
do.
they had Andy Reeves. So she's a new House representative candidate,
Clovis, New
DA
Mexico.
a DA from Clovis.
Right.
And very intelligent, understands crime, understands the issues with the courts
Sure.
and corrections, and she's running. And
And
she'll
will
have
win.
a piece of Chavez. That's right.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's just it. We got a lot of smart people that have the answers and the options to do this, and they don't get a platform because the political climate. If you're not this, then we're going to drown you out. If you're not this, we're going to not give you a platform to do that.
Which is why
yeah.
the 104,000 registered Republicans, that doesn't even count independents, declined estates, or others in Lee, Eddy, and Chavez County. If you'll just go vote, you get to drown out the progressives in every statewide race.
There you go.
From the top of the ticket.
It's so important. Employers, make sure your employees go vote.
Mm-hmm.
Family members, make sure your sons and daughters, mothers and fathers go vote.
Absolutely.
It is your responsibility. It is your duty, and it makes a difference in New Mexico when you go vote. Everybody
Absolutely.
should vote.
And I'll say this from the Republican Party needs help in the House.
Absolutely.
Senate and the
Absolutely.
House both.
Absolutely.
They need help. They need, as I said a while, we need to get back, we need to get back to middle before we
Yes.
start talking
Hey.
conservative. We got to get there before we get there. And
You've got Nybert, you've got
Yeah.
Candy, you've got Representative Townsend, and now
Yeah.
Andy Reid will win. She's got an opponent, but we believe she'll
Jimmy
win.
Mason will win down
Jimmy
south.
Mason, yeah.
Good.
And so we're just asking you to give $25 to help the other folks.
Absolutely.
They're outnumbered in Bernalillo, but $25 makes a huge difference. That helps us reach 5 voters.
sure.
So
Just-
if everybody gave $25
Well, and
today,
it's just the way the world works. Is we live in a world where the more money you got, the more platforms and more places you get
Well,
to speak your message.
It's very expensive
Mhm.
to run races in Albuquerque, Santa Fe area. Much more expensive than it is down here. They're highly contested, and it makes a difference. These, not only does Southeast New Mexico make sure that all of our kids go to school,
Mm-hmm.
they also make sure that our state runs. And we just ask that they take $25. $25. Go to nmhrcc.org.
Okay.
Make that donation, and I promise you it'll be much appreciated, and we'll thank you for it.
Absolutely. And then for folks that aren't good at remembering stuff, what I'll have Tanner do is on our video here that people watch, we'll put the link in the comments there so you
cool.
can go and just hit that button.
and if you
and
happen
go
to get
there.
a text message that asks you to save your job, your oil and gas job, because this is their religion. Green energy, climate control. I mean, this is a religion to these progressives, and they won't stop unless we stop them.
Well-
so you may get a text message asking you to give $25. That's us.
Well, and here's the irrational part. It's not that they're wanting something better to make it better. They just want it gone, regardless whether we have something to replace it or not. And that's
Exactly.
And it's like the electric cars and stuff. It's like that's wonderful. We're making those
Look what they're
strides.
doing at South with the
San Juan
generating plant right
Yeah.
now. They're admitting that they don't have enough power for
Yeah.
the next 2 years, but they're going to shut it down at the end of the week.
Yeah.
And there's going to be rolling blackouts and brownouts by their own admission. And I tell you, I said it the other day on Twitter. If we have a rolling blackout in New Mexico, the first thing that ought to go black is the Capitol building.
Yes.
Then the second thing ought to be the governor's mansion, and
Yeah.
every fool that voted for that bill ought to
Absolutely.
be living in the dark.
But I'm hearing things like in California now where, yeah, great, electric cars, wonderful. But now, we don't have the grid to keep up with this. So
Yeah.
you can only charge your cars on Thursdays or Friday. You know what I mean? Just weird. And it's like, I get if you're trying to make things better, but you got to have something to replace it first. I'm all for electric and technology,
Absolutely.
but it's not better than gas. Until I can get a truck that can haul as much as I need it to haul and can do it on 500 miles in one charge, then it is useless to me.
So I
You
think
know
that
what I mean?
clean fuel standard that they adopted, the energy
That
or
was the clean-
environmental improvement board.
Yeah, the
they
EIB,
adopted
right.
a California standard for small and mid-sized vehicles. They said it would take about 850 charging stations on the state and federal highways.
Wow.
They don't know what they're going to do in apartment complexes or how anybody's going to have energy to charge their vehicles when they all plug in at night.
All while you're shutting down a power plant that's providing the power.
Yeah.
And this is
Makes no sense.
unelected governor-appointed bureaucrats, 3 of them. Same ones responsible for the methane rule, 3 or 5 of them. But anyways, they're voting for they're making these changes because they are appointed by a progressive governor who wants to look like
We just
California.
need to get some common sense back in
And that's
government.
it.
We just got to
we got to get back to the middle. So there's some people talking sense in the room here. So, like you said, please, register to vote. Like, hey, we're gonna have the fair folks in a minute. There going to be lots of opportunities to register to vote at the fair.
Absolutely.
I know the Republican Party will have their booth.
We'll have a booth out there and make it handy for
Yes,
you.
and so and I imagine you'll probably over the course of the week get to meet a lot of our New Mexico candidates at the booth there at some point or another. So definitely give out that website one more time.
You bet, Mike. It's
Senator.
NMHRCC, New Mexico House Republican Caucus Committee, NMHRCC.org.
Very good. Well, Rebecca, Jim, thank you very much for spending time with us. Thank you for and good luck with this next session here. And I know you guys are. Hopefully, you got more soldiers fighting with you in January.
We absolutely will.
We will.
Good deal. Thank you guys.
You bet.
All right, it is 9:30.